Do you want a financially secure future, not just for yourself, but for your loved ones as well? This is Generations of Wealth, the podcast that breaks down the most effective wealth building strategies you can easily apply to your own life. Join investor and international best-selling author Derek Dombeck in exploring practical tips and sound advice on building a profitable business, creating a powerful brand, or getting into the thriving world of real estate investing. This is your chance to create your very own financial roadmap to live your vision, love your life. Let's begin this discussion with your host, Derek Dombeck.
Welcome to the Generations of Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Derek Dombeck, and today we've got somebody that's super interesting. We've been talking a little bit off camera. Bill Faeth comes from the Tennessee area, but has an incredible background, has started over 30 startups. And I think what I really enjoy the most and what we'll dive into is the conversation that we were having about how to live your vision and kind of how Bill restructured his business and his life with his wife around 2015. So Bill, it's kind of a unique introduction, but if you wouldn't mind giving everybody the cliff notes as to who you are, what you do, and then I'm really excited about diving into this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, I'm a guy that grew up with a single mom, no father, in Bakersfield, California, probably the most redneck town in the country, to be honest with you. People in California call it the armpit of California. But my mom was a teacher. We were not poor, but she probably never made more than 35 grand a year. And we were okay. I was an athlete growing up, and about my sophomore year in high school, if you have any basketball fans out there was a guy named Tracy Murray that played at UCLA and had about a 15-year NBA career. He scored 57 on me in a half, the first half of a Christmas tournament. I went to my coach, Ron Loria, Derek, and at halftime, and I said, "Hey, coach, I think I'm done." He's like, "What are you talking about? You only have 3 fouls. You got to play the second half." I'm like, "Coach, he just scored 57 on me. We're down like literally, it's like 71-8. I said, "I'm getting pretty good in golf. I think I'm going to quit right now and, let Brian jump in for me. And I'm just going to focus on golf." That was the last time I played basketball. I graduated from high school. I was the third ranked player in the world in golf. Went to UCLA on a full ride. I kind of, in a joke in my bio, say that I've slept with Tiger Woods 51 times, which I actually have, not like physically, but we've shared hotel rooms and stuff like that. I've traveled a lot of junior golf with him and his dad, Earl, because my mom couldn't afford to do it. And a couple of other guys, Phil Mickelson and some guys like that. But I started my first entrepreneurial journey when I was a junior in high school, Derek. And my mom really didn't have an entrepreneurial spirit. She was a teacher, then a vice principal and stuff like that. My whole family was in education. And I met a guy named Jay Jacoby in LA, and what's a junior am, like a pro-am or a fishing pro-am type of a deal, where the kid plays with like 3 amateurs. Long story short, he gave me 20 shirts. He was a t-shirt manufacturer, like Karl Malone, Michael Jordan, all these basketball shirts back in the day. And there was no Lakers shirts. I was the Lakers guy. So I sold all of them. My mom's like, "You can't sell those." I said, "I made $25. I got them for free. There was like 10 shirts. I made $250. She's like, "Okay, give me 50. I'm like, "Why am I giving you 50? It's going to my piggy bank." She's like, "Because that's going to pay for the gas next time we go down to LA, and we're going to go see Mr. Jacoby, and you're giving the rest back to him." Long story short, Jay didn't take the money. He gave me 100 t-shirts, and he said, "Sell them for 25. I'll take 5. You keep 20. And literally, I can remember vividly sitting at the dining room table in our small house and my mom with one of those old ledger sheets, running through it, teaching me what a P&L is at 17 years old. And I didn't fully comprehend it. Just like a big thing for me, I have 2 daughters, is confidence for my 2 daughters. They're 14 and 18. Oldest one's going to college. But most importantly, financial literacy for them. And you can understand that, I'm sure you're a father and, being an entrepreneur. And I think that's one thing that kind of set the tone for me for my 34 startups. I built 1 company over 50 million, 4 over 30, and I kind of, about 15 to 20 of them were between 10 to 30 million. And a lot of people would say, "Well, why do you stop there?" Because I learned early on when I was scaling that $50 million company, I had 700 employees. I hated it. right? And I decided I want to be the small business guy. So I would build to scale, and typically I would sell within 3 to 6 years. So it'd be a very short stint. And I was really focused on not only scaling and profitability, but maximizing EBITDA and valuations along the way. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't think about when they start a business is what's the exit strategy. And there's certain coaches out there that would say, Bill, that's fucking stupid. You're thinking about the exit strategy. All these people don't have a plan B. Don't think about exit, just grow and scale. I completely disagree. I always want to have an exit strategy. I mean, I'm getting ready to make my largest single family home investment right now that I'm under contract for single family home, $3 million single family home. That's like crazy. But I'm exiting 2 other pieces of real estate to fund that at $1.4 million cash down, to where I don't have to pull out a pocket of cash. And I know this is a long intro, but I'm gonna leave you with one thing. So that way your followers understand where I'm at on my real estate journey. My personal, just short-term rental portfolio. We're not talking about investment group, multifamily, motels, that type of stuff. I'm at $18.8 million in market value. My debt is $3.3 million. I have built that entire portfolio. Cash flows, it'll do about $1.2 million net this year. That's out of one investment in 2015. $126,000 investment. I've never put another penny back in for upgrades, design, interior renovation. I've grown out of cash flow, and everybody listening, you can do that exact same thing if you're diligent in the underwriting process.
Well, that is a hell of an intro. Couple things to talk about, I think, from that intro. But the one that really stood out to me first and foremost, even though I love the numbers, the short-term rental portfolio, that's a great topic in itself. We could spend hours on. But you said something that really triggered me is the financial literacy for kids. And it's something I have done with our kids for years is go through our deals and talk about what we bought it for, what we stuck into it. Here's our net profit, and then put it into terms that they can understand.
Right.
And I love the fact that you're doing that with your children right now, because a lot of people, in my opinion, they want to hide all the financial stuff from their children, right? And it's not that the kids have to see the stress we go through and when things are going bad. But personally, we let our kids know when we don't give them the details. We let them know when things didn't go well. We had a deal that didn't turn out the way we thought it would. So can you give us a little more details on what you do specifically with your children?
Yeah, so it kind of starts with our real estate. I don't hide anything. I'm an open book, Derek. We live in a $2 million home on an acre in Brentwood, Tennessee, which is the wealthiest nouveau riche, not the old money, part of Nashville. And we moved there for school systems when we relocated from California. Our children have seen every piece of our real estate. Our girls have seen my P&Ls. I've shown them tax returns. They know how much money we make. They know where we live. They understand that they have to work for it. They see how hard I work. They see how hard their mother works. My wife, the only reason I'm down at my lake house right now is around the lake in the corner, we're turning a 7-6 into a 12-9. This massive, family reunion, church retreat type of deal. And she's been down here for 6-7 days today. She has been away from the kids. That's a hard thing. So we explained why. One of the big things for us is when we first started, they knew that mommy and daddy bought a beach house. Then they knew that mommy and daddy bought a lake house, then a mountain house. And we had to sit down and explain, because I didn't want them going to school and, telling their friends about this stuff. And then they understood why. And my youngest daughter still says, because we have 2 places in Montana, we're buying another place, and she's like, she hates Montana. How anybody hates Montana, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out, but
no.
She's like, you don't need another place in Montana. You don't need another house. You don't need another motel. And so I sit her down and I'm like, well, here's how much money we make. And if I don't do this, then here's how much I'm going to have to pay Uncle Sam. And let's open up your piggy bank and I'm going to give you $100, but you need to give 42 of those dollars back to me or put them over here for taxes. But if you buy this pair of sunglasses for me that are worth $100, and you could accelerate depreciation on that, do a cost segregation study. And she doesn't get it, but they're learning. The other part of the big thing for me is that and it started with my oldest daughter, Derek, is she knew her freshman year in high school that she wanted to become a surgeon. And I have way too many friends from my golfing career and now my 30,000 students that are professionals, attorneys, dentists, anesthesiologists, doctors, and they have zero financial literacy and they get taken advantage of by their CPAs, by their attorneys, by general partners, whatever that is. So I made it a huge part of mine and my wife's life plan. The big thing for us is every Friday, her and I meet from noon to 4, and we audit what's happened the previous week. Well, about 2 years ago, we brought our daughters into this on the back end. So my wife and I will usually go to lunch, have a bottle of wine, go to a park, do whatever. And people see that part on social media. They don't see that we're going through our P&Ls. We're going through our financial statements that we're calling, but we're also auditing our sex lives, our intimacy, how we are as parents, and where we're at on that green line. We've all seen that commercial, right? To retirement, to financial freedom. And we decided to bring in our daughters. And we wanted to know just a handful of questions for them. How confident were you in yourself this week? How present were mommy and daddy? How loved did you feel this week? What did we do? Do you feel like we rate us on how we were as parents? We kind of go through these questions and we want them involved because we want them asking themselves those questions, but they shut down when we ask them as parents, right?
Right.
So that all kind of ties into the financial literacy. So my daughter now has her own Amex, just small things. I bought her a brand new car a year ago for kind of a pre-graduation gift. But most importantly, the smaller Broncos that are around $35,000. I put $5,000 down, which typically I always put 50% down, but here's why I put $5,000 down. And I took her in, she sat with me when I signed the contract. We took pictures of it, 60-month finance, which I never do. And I said, honey, here's why I'm doing the 60-month finance. Because you're going to make a payment every single month for 60 months on this because she works for one of my companies and she makes like $3,000 a month. Your insurance is going to cost you like $187 a month. You got to pay that every month. Your payment is going to be, I forgot what it was, like $540 a month. But here's the deal. When you graduate from Belmont University in 4 years, because I'm buying this at the start of your senior year, before you go into med school, this will be a paid off asset. Then we pull up Kelley Blue Book and we say, this is going to be worth between $12,000 to $14,000 if you keep it in this condition and put this amount of miles on it. So you need to watch your miles, got to do oil change, you got to keep it clean. If you get a dent, let me know. I'll help you find a dent repair place. We'll get it fixed. So you have as valuable as possible. And she asked the right question, Derek. She's all, why is it worth so little? And I said, because this is a depreciating asset. This is why mommy and daddy invest into real estate that appreciates versus depreciates. So I'm almost done, like 15 more seconds. This $3 million single family home we're buying, my youngest daughter says, why are you buying that? That's stupid. I hate Montana. My oldest daughter is, how much will that appreciate over the next 20 years until you die? Jokingly, but she actually wanted to talk about the appreciation. So I'm selling $1 million property that has $350,000 in equity in it. I'm selling a $1.9 million property that has $1 million in equity in it. I can cost seg where I can actually pull cash out. I don't have to 1031, right? And I'm rolling it in and I'm like, honey, 2017, 18, 19, that property appreciated at 7.3% on average. 2021, which we won't count, was like 18% and 21% and 18%. But most importantly, 23 was 6.7%. So that's roughly about 6.65% on average pre-COVID and post-COVID. I said, but we're going to budget 5%. So at $3 million, that properties should increase at $150,000 a year. If I die in 25 years, how much more equity are you going to have when I leave you this property? And so those are the things that we go through. I don't really go through every deal with her, but she asked, and I just want him to catch, it's hard with kids. I mean, mine are 14 and 18. They hook on to what they want to hook on to. And if you go past that too deep, then they shut down, right? So for us, it's kind of these micro doses on a weekly or monthly basis. And when they catch on to one, then we'll teach and emphasize that for them.
100%. Yeah, mine are 17, 13, and 6. And it's very, especially with the age gap between all three kids, But the one thing that kicks in, like literally today, after you and I get done recording, I'm leaving to go to Tennessee, and we're gonna take our travel trailer and spend almost a little over a week with a bunch of real estate friends, and that's what they get to see. And we're actually working on exchanging kids amongst our friends. So we want to send our daughter, our 17-year-old, to go live with one of our other real estate investor friends for a month or two and do a kid swap, because you know as well as I do, daddy tells him to do something, it just goes in one ear out the other. But if Mr. Chris tells him, well, it's the gospel and it'll be the best thing since sliced bread. Dad, you should have heard what Chris said. I've been telling you that for years, right? So
Yep.
so we're working on doing that with our kids, because we've grown such great connections with these other families around the country.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it's something that not only helps with their business side of things, but it really it gets them around other kids who have parents that are entrepreneurial, right? It's not what they're learning at their local schools. So
100%.
well, I love that. Like I said, we could talk about that for hours as well, but let's dive in a little bit on your short-term rentals. You said you started out with a $126,000 investment. You built it up. Walk us through that. And what do you think is the future of short-term rentals? Which, full disclosure, I am not in that business, so I don't have a dog in this hunt, so to speak. But what do you think is going to happen?
I still believe to this day it's the number one asset class to invest into, because the cash flow is so much higher than midterm rentals or long-term rentals. You get the same appreciation. You actually can accelerate many times even better tax benefits. So I've been in it. I've been all in it. I invest into multifamily. I love forced appreciation. I love the repositioning strategies. I've got an investment capital fund, Riven Capital. We do motels and hotels and all that type of stuff. But I stay in short-term rentals. I started with $126,000, technically with my second property. My business partner in my glow-in-the-dark miniature golf business bought the first one without telling me, in Estes Park, Colorado. But really, mine and my wife's first venture together was in Fort Morgan, Alabama, down by Gulf Shores. And, we bought the property, we put $126,000 down. I think we might have upgraded like $10,000 or $15,000 worth of furnishings and stuff like that. And it was doing $44,000 a year. We did 98 in our first year and 112 in the second year. We saved every penny of it. We was not a 7-figure income earner like I am today based on real estate, right? And so I think we were probably making $300,000, $400,000 combined at that time. So even $126,000 was a big stretch, because and here's what I want everybody to understand. I'm sometime around December to February of 24 into 25, I will hit $1 billion in personal sales. I've got plenty of money, but hopefully, like most of you are teaching your kids, my money is my money. It's not their money. So when I make money off a previous business venture, that doesn't carry over into something else. So I live within my means on each individual business venture, just to clarify, right? So we are living off $300,000-$400,000, probably net worth of $5 or $6 million at that point, but we never touched it. So we make the investment. We grew out of cash flow for 2 years, and then we had enough to buy the second property. And we downgraded from a $629,000 property to a $200,000 property, and I made a colossal fucking mistake, Derek. I'm sitting at literally a hockey game in Dallas, Texas, the Winter Classic, with my Nashville Predators playing the Dallas Stars, getting their ass kicked. I probably had 4 of those big 24-ounce beers, maybe 3 beers before the second period, and we were there like an hour and a half ahead of time. I have a junior agent do a FaceTime walkthrough, sign a contract between period 2, period 3, this no-brainer deal, didn't see it myself, didn't inspect it, made every fucking mistake I teach people not to do, and then it ended up costing me about $150,000. That set me back all the way to the end of 2018. I had that one property, and like I said, they stand alone. I had to regrow out of cash flow from 15, made this deal at the end of 16, I had to wait all of 17, all of 18 to generate cash again to go buy the next deal. And what we did is we sold that first property. So I'm of a mindset, and most people do not think this way, but I think this is what's allowed me to scale so quickly, when I buy a property, I'm thinking, how fast can I sell this? As opposed to buy and hold long term, right? So I get all my tax benefits typically in year number one. If I'm doing 5X, midterm rental or long-term rental, I've got cash flow. Then I look at my equity build, and debt pay down is a huge deal. So almost every deal I do on a commercial loan, 20% down, 20-year amortization, and then I accelerate payments, right? So I'm paying at least twice a month. I have two banks actually let me pay every single week, to offset interest. So I'm really working on debt pay down. If I can get an owner finance, I do an owner finance. But I am not like hardcore with Pace and Jerry. We talked about pre-roll is to just do sub twos and that type of stuff. So what happens is I basically executed what I call a 550-250 plan. And the key here is the mindset of we want to get to reposition as quickly as we can. So I'm taking that multifamily, kind of repositioning mindset where I'm either going to, cash out refi and buy out the investors, or I'm going to create an infinite return for myself as a general partner, or I'm going to sell the asset, at the highest cap rate available. And you can manipulate NOI and all that type of stuff, as you guys are very well aware of, to be able to increase NOI to get a higher valuation. You can't do that in a single family. So it's really out of cash flow, debt pay down, and then, the tax benefits. So one of the things that almost nobody does that I said about that $3 million property in Whitefish, Montana, most people in our space are not looking at appreciation rates. And if they are, they mix COVID in. So COVID that literally should be wiped off the planet for a million different reasons. But for us as investors, we cannot factor that in. And that's where people got hammered when they were investing in 23, 22, 23. They're going off the T12s and they didn't know any better. So I kind of eliminate that, but really I won't buy a property. And here's the 550-250. It's $250,000 in net income in 5 years, very conservatively, with one single investment up front. You have to underwrite well. You have to look at appreciation, debt pay down, tax benefits, all that stuff. And your property has to make $50,000 a year net, at least, minimum. So a lot of people just get hung up on the cash flow with that. And especially if they've been long-term investors, they're like, there's no way this house. This was a $700,000 house when I bought it. It's worth $1.62 million. I've owned it for 2.5 years. Sure, I put $125,000 cash post close into accelerating the appreciation, but we all should be burying and doing that type of stuff. That's where we all make the money, right? Mm-hmm. So this property has done an average since I think we launched in February of 22. So 2.5 years, we have averaged $218,000 in gross revenue on basically an $825,000 investment, right? I operate around 40 to 45% net income. So let's just pull it down to 200 from 212 and let's look at 45%. I mean, we're talking $95,000. This today, in today's economy, rents long-term at $3,100 a month, right? So there is absolutely, and that's gross. So I'm netting 3.25 times what the gross long-term rent would be in this property, right? So that's where the cash flow is king. Now, you asked about the future of short-term rentals. For people that do it right, that are doing the due diligence, doing the underwriting, doing multiple pro formas, calling 16 banks to look at different financing options versus going to their one guy at their one local bank, that are doing it right, that understand how to force appreciation, that are committed to running it like a freaking business and not a hobby. Short-term rentals are amazing, and they will continue to be. Now we're seeing mass exits because the gold rush is over. Those professionals that got in and bought 5, 6, 10 properties all over the country, sight unseen, and all they had to do was put it on Airbnb and Vrbo, and they could do $100,000 out of a $400,000 property. That doesn't exist today. The ones that understanding the core values of revenue management, listing optimization, and a little bit of off-platform marketing are the ones that are ascending well above that 90th percentile. So it's kind of like what's happening in America today. The gap between lower class and upper class, the middle class is getting squeezed. You're either going down or you're going up. And I see that eliminating. Same things happening. And, you look at Pace Morby. We talked about him, prior to. I had lunch with him when I was in Montana 3 weeks ago. And, it's the same thing that's happening in almost, whether it's RV parks, whether, even self-storage units, just doing a regular self-storage unit without some amenities to upsell to, I got to go check in and grab a key and get through the lock, and I can only get in between 8 and 5, just stupid stuff like that. You're going to $125 a month for, an 8x8 versus $300 a month when you have all the other amenities that go along with it. So a lot of it's about leveling up, but making sure that you don't overinvest and overspend when you're trying to get there.
Yeah, and I know we have a lot of the same mentality. The only difference probably between you and I, as far as I'm not a fan of institutional financing. I'm probably more along the lines of PACE, where I like dealing with people instead of institutions. Now, that's not to say I shouldn't be using institutions or won't in the future, but historically, I'm not a fan. But you can leverage in a much, much stronger way by using the institutions. And what you said, going to whatever it was, a dozen different lenders and seeing all their options instead of just the same one. I see that all the time with people that are talking to me and saying, well, I want to buy this property, because I also ran a hard money lending company for 10 years. And my former business partner bought me out not too long ago. And it was the same old story, right? People only had one source of funding, and they would have a really good deal and it would fall by the wayside because they didn't have plan B, plan C, plan D, so on and so forth.
Agreed.
And I think that's 99% of people, as you also said, that treat their business as a hobby instead of a business. That's proof, right? They only have one source. They're not treating it as a business.
And nobody asks for owner financing, right? So even if I'm going in to do, commercial lending or whatever, before I literally submit an offer, every single time I ask for owner financing. Every single time. And I've got about five that are on owner finance.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 2 that are sub 2. And we just have, it's like salespeople, right? Great salespeople ask every fucking time. But the ones at the bottom, they're afraid to ask, right? And they don't know when to ask. So I would advise everybody listening, even if you're doing institutional lending, always ask before you submit the offer.
100%. And everybody that knows me and listens to my show, they know how I feel about this. Literally every lead that comes in the door, we are giving them multiple options, and we are always asking for seller financing or, the ability to put together a structured terms deal. Mm-hmm. And everyone says, well, how do you find creative deals? You don't find creative deals. You build creative deals through conversations and through asking questions. So I'll get off my...
and that's almost never going to happen between 2 agents representing a buyer and a seller.
No, 100%. That's right. That's right. I do want to segue a little bit here, because you and your wife are sounds like very much on the same page with how you run your lives, how you run your business, how you raise your children. Was it always that way, or was there a point in your life, your marriage, where you had to take a step back and do some strategic planning?
I think we both thought it was always that way, because we had a good 18 years of marriage that was incredible. I should say really good. I should retract the word incredible. Really good. I've never had to sleep on the couch, never had to go to a motel. Her best friend's father was our pastor that married us in our pre-marriage counseling, and everybody talks about this, and we took it to heart. We've never gone to bed without ending a fight, and, hugging, kissing, making it up. But because I've done 34 startups, and she was, I hate to use the term, I just don't know what else to say, the stay-at-home mom. She's very active in my businesses. I mean, she's my designer. She manages all the construction today in the real estate. She's a designer. She works directly with our accountants and bookkeepers and does our books and all that stuff. So, and she's mom and team coach and, all the stuff that moms do. Way more valuable than me. With that being said, in early 2015, I joined EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, which I have a lot of respect for, but I got recruited into a forum, which is one of their small groups, if anybody knows what it is, and I had a bad experience. And I had a bad experience because I'm the OCD, ADD, quadruple type A personality that's been uber successful in almost every single thing that I've done. And it pisses me off when somebody's late. It pisses me off when we're supposed to have our financials and our cash flow reports and then somebody doesn't have that ready consistently. One time's fine, but when you got a guy or a group of guys that shows up habitually late and isn't prepared and wasting my fucking time, I get pissed. So after about 6.5 months, I walked in one day and the same thing. We had like 3 A players and 5 B players in this group. And you could feel the tension every time we had a meeting. It was like an 8-hour commitment a month to be in these meetings. And 3 of them walked in late. I just got up. I said, guys, here's my binder. I quit. I said, I can't take this anymore. You, and you. You guys really suck at business. You should probably hire a fucking CEO. Hey, Alan, John, you guys are awesome. And we were in Alan's office. I'm going to start my own fucking group if you want to come with me. And they did. And we started something called Spark. And I'm not dogging on EO. I love the organization and all the global events and everything they have. But there's one major fundamental flaw. I don't care how successful we are. I don't care what our personality type is as entrepreneurs. We still need leadership, right? We need somebody to hold us accountable. So I started Spark with Alan and John. We recruited in 6 other guys. We had 9 guys. But the fundamental difference is we found a gentleman named John Bairden, who was a retired 2-time Fortune 500 CEO, now an angel investor. And he was what we all aspired to be, right? And he was about probably at that time, he's probably 15 to 17 years old. He's probably in his late 60s, early 70s today. I'm 51. And he was retired. We said, John, we would love for you to lead this group if you will hold us accountable. And we had lengthy conversations with him. He said, I'd love to. Walks in the very first meeting, brings 3-ring binders for all of us, throws them down, locks the door behind him in the conference room, and said, 1, if anybody's late, it's a $500 fine. That's going in to pay for our annual retreat. 2, if you're not prepared, it's a $500 fine. If you don't have your financials, don't even fucking bother walking in the fucking door. I'm the CEO of this organization. I'm going to treat you guys like my direct reports. All of you are GMs, COOs, whatever bullshit title you want to give to yourselves. You are going to directly report to me because that's what you've asked for. Whew, then the air. We're like, oh shit. We're all like, our body language had to be like this, right? And literally we thought we were going to dive right into business with John. And what he did is he opened up the binder and he said, I know you guys are ascending to try to be like me. At the time, that company I was working on was only about 2 million. The other John and the member had a $5 million pasta manufacturing company. The highest end luxury real estate builder in Nashville is doing about 25 to 30 million a year. We all wanted to build these $300, $400 million companies that John Bairden had built. And he said, you know what? I've been divorced 3 times. My oldest son hasn't spoken. He's the president of a bank now and hasn't spoken to me in whatever it was, 3 or 4 years. I've sacrificed a lot of family to ascend to where I got to professionally. And I can tell you, I would give every single dollar back to move back 35 years and restart over and not sacrifice family. And that's where the life plan started. And it took us about 3 months to understand it and go through it and build it out. And we were embargoed. We couldn't say anything about what we were doing to our spouses. So we had to go through it first. Then we went through and implemented it with our spouse. And John, I said, and he asked me, I think I was the first one, how's your marriage? I said, it's great. It's awesome. Really? Would your wife tell me the exact same thing? I said, I think so. He's all, well, that means no. My confident answer for me, speaking for my wife, just came way down. And so long story short, we put together an SLA, basically a sales letter agreement that we combined. I went through mine. She went through hers. Defined retirement / financial freedom for the younger kids out there. Us old people still call it retirement. And it's not just it's where you want to live. What do you want? What are you going to do? How are you going to travel? I mean, you're going to go do a world tour every year at $100,000 each? Are you going to fly Southwest? Are you going to fly private? Are you going to have, multiple homes? We got to define that. We got to forecast that. Just like we need to forecast revenue and customer acquisition in any type of a business, right? And then it broke down. We went through all those business components. How much debt do you want to have? How much cash flow? How much income? All these things. Have you maxed out your 529s? Are you going to spend $100,000 on weddings? I have 2 girls. Things that I really wasn't thinking about at that point. And then it got down to the personal side. How many times a week are you guys intimate? Define intimacy. And what I found was intimacy for me meant sex. intimacy for my wife was completely different. That could have just been, a shoulder rub or a hug while she's cooking. And her and I are not touchy-feely people at all. So what we found, Derek, is that we weren't intimate enough, right? And we weren't having sex enough. We were having sex like 1.5 to 2 times a week. And sometimes we'd go weeks without doing it. But then we went in and we decided, you know what, minimum of 3 times a week. So, and that's in our contract. And I've talked about this publicly at my big 3,000 person conference and all that type of stuff. And people laugh. And I'm like, you think it's fucking funny. It's not a joke. This is reality of how we want to build our relationship. Kind of going back to bringing our kids in on, we call it Faith Fridays, when we meet every Friday. It is non-negotiable, that meeting. So she's going to miss the meeting. That's why I drove down here 2.5 hours to meet with her and be with her for 2 days while we're working. So we know we can get a couple hours at night in the hot tub, here at the kitchen counter, whatever it is, talking about the last week and what we're going to do next week while we're on vacation. And it's that audit that's critical. And I think that's a fundamental component that most people miss. They'll talk about things with their spouse and their family, but they don't nail it down individually, then come together to have a written down plan of what they want. And even if they get to that step, they don't audit it every single week. The audit every week is really what has been crucial for us. We live just south of Nashville, Derek. We typically go to a place called like North Italia or Luogo. One of our restaurants will have lunch. We'll have a couple of glasses of wine, and we take our laptops. And literally, we go there so often, they know exactly what we're doing. They leave us alone. They put us in the very back, and we go through them. When we're done, we might come and sit up and talk to people we know and sit at the bar, or have our kids come and join us for dinner and then go through their portion of the audit. But that's something that we can't miss. It's like if you want to get healthy or lose weight, you can't miss, at least 2 days. So I've had a rule is I've just lost 80 pounds in the last 16 months. And, all of us, if you're fat, we go like this, right? So now the new rule that I went back to when I played professional golf is I couldn't go at 2 days without practice. So now I can't go 2 days without working out. We can't go 2 days without doing that Friday meeting. So that means we either have to do it ahead of time on Wednesday or Thursday, or we have to do it Saturday or Sunday. Twice since 2015, I've been gone and we haven't been able to get together. So we've had to do it on Zoom, and we do it on Zoom and we record it and we archive it. But then we go back, and as soon as I get home or she gets home, then we meet in person, because that in-person interaction is completely different than doing something on Zoom.
I love everything that you're talking about. And quite honestly, this is something that many families, many entrepreneurial families struggle with. My wife and I both are very vision orientated. We have written visions for what we want in our life, but I will tell you, we do not audit the way that you do, not even close.
So here's the thing that John taught me, and he's all, Bill, you should have known this from ascending to the very top level in golf, right? He's all, when you're playing, he was a golfer, but he was no good. And if anybody plays golf, when you're just like a weekend golfer, you look at in a golf course, they have 100-yard markers in the middle of the fairway, 150, 200, 250 on a par 5 typically. And you kind of just look at it. Oh, I'm about 230. When you ascend to that top level, you are 137 to the front edge. You're 141 to fly the bunker on the right to that back right pin. You got 6 steps to the right and 7 on the back. And you want to hit it 4.5 yards to the left to take the bunker out of play and have an uphill right to left breaking putt. That's the specificity that a good player executes with, that knowledge base. It's the same thing. So we determined exactly how much cash we wanted, how much debt. So our whole investing strategy, remember when I talked way back at the beginning, currently I've got, just in the short-term rental portfolio, 18.8 million, netting about 1.1 to 1.2 this year on $3.3 million in debt. Absolutely fucking critical data, because we're retiring. Our definition of retirement is all triggered on a life event. We are financially free today, but we're waiting for our youngest daughter, who is halfway through summer, or really just ended summer, in 3 years and 2 months, or 3 years and about 5 weeks is when she will start college. Mm-hmm. That's when our retirement starts, right? The youngest kid, we become empty nesters. So we had to determine how much debt. Why is that 1.1, 1.2 million critical? Because that's paying off the $3.3 million in debt. That $3 million acquisition I'm making, there's a reason I'm going to put like 1.3 million down on it as opposed to 20% or do a sub 2 or whatever it is, because I want to pay my debt down. I was Robert Kiyosaki 20 years ago. I now want to be Dave Ramsey in 3 years and be completely debt free. So that's all part of the plan. The decisions on whether we're going to have a $500 bottle of wine at dinner on Friday night, or we're not going to drink wine, or we're going to have a $50 bottle of wine, all tie into that plan. And if we don't audit that, just like if you don't have your P&Ls on every business, every property, don't give a shit if it's a motel, a single family home, an RV park, every fucking month by like the 5th of the month, not the 21st, the 5th of the month, then you are not financially literate because you're not executing at the high level of a business. You're turning that into a hobby. If we don't know those financials, if we don't have an intimate, relationship with what we want as a couple, for our kids, as a family, if we don't have an intimate relationship with what we want financially, we're not going to achieve it. So John taught us how to be very specific. A date. I wanted to retire when I was 60 financially. I thought that's how long it was going to take me in 2015. I'm 51. I did it at 48 for financial freedom, right? Now it's just about those life events. It's about planning. My oldest daughter had her graduation like 3 weeks ago. At lunch, 30 minutes after her graduation, my father-in-law literally tripped over a threshold. He's 75, fell head first into a wall, broke 4 vertebrae in his back, has a 9-inch gash. He's wearing a neck brace. He's the one that's going to go first, and we're going to have to take care of my wife's mother. So planning to take care of that financially, time-wise, and even logistically of what we're going to have to do for her, we don't want to get caught off guard. And you learn that from experience. I got caught off guard when my mother passed away and didn't know where her stuff was. So one of the biggest things that I'll share with you that came out of the outside of the planning is John taught me to build the packet. So in my safety deposit box, I have a packet. And the packet has photocopies of every life insurance policy, term, whole, universal, whatever you're into. It has copies of all the mortgage statements. It has copies of everything. And there is a 7.5-page document for my wife or my kids of what to do. Yeah. Like, here's what you sell, here's what you invest in, here's where the stocks are, here's everything. But most importantly, I'm sorry I left you guys alone, but here you're going to be fine. And here's the steps that you need to take. And here's the people that you need to call. And here's who you don't trust. And here's who you do trust. Nobody has a fucking packet. And there's 2 safety deposit boxes. There's $100,000 in cash in the second one, right? And the safety deposit box key for that one is in this envelope. And she knows not to open it until I have passed away. She knows what's in there, but I don't want her going through that emotional component, right? And she's all, well, do I need to make a packet for you? I said, no, I'm good. So the life insurance and just everything that's in there, every single thing that she knows, from the builders to the properties to just everything. And we don't have an everything packet. At least I didn't. And almost everybody that I talk to, they think they have it, but it's not specific enough. And you think about it, if you are the alpha in your relationship, if you are the breadwinner in your relationship, and I really looked at my in-laws, Derek. My mother-in-law uses the term, I'm a kept woman. She doesn't know where the bank accounts are. She doesn't know how to read anything. She doesn't know how to interpret anything. That's why we're going to have to take care of her. Mm-hmm. Rod, my wife's father, did everything. And my wife is way more in tune with what we do because we do everything together now. But she wouldn't know which property to hold and which property to sell. And then somebody else is going to influence her. And I want to make sure she knows. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. We've talked about this in our circle of friends. And most of us have a starter package, I would call it, amongst my circle of friends, but certainly not as detailed as it should be. And even if you have it as detailed as it should be, going back and updating it as necessary, as your assets change and as things change, I would say, annually at least?
Every time that we add a significant asset, every time we update it. So, and I had this discussion with Pace, and Pace is like, well, I'm buying 12 properties a week. I'm like, you don't need to do that, right? So we probably do it 3 to 4. We probably do it quarterly, to be honest with you. But look, here's the other thing that's really important. Our attorney knows what's in that packet. He has a digital copy. And our CPA knows. So I have 2 attorneys and I have a CPA and 2 tax consultants, right? But the tax consultants don't need to know, but my CPA that files our taxes needs to know, and they need to be in communication with the attorney, and the attorney needs to know. And the executor of that will, like if we both pass away, which would suck, and my kids are left behind, the executor knows exactly what to do, and they have a PDF copy as well. So it's that preparation. I mean, like I told you earlier, I'm going to Europe on Sunday, actually. We photocopied our passports. We photocopied our driver's license, all of our prescriptions for the drugs that well, I shouldn't say drugs, but our supplements and medicine and that type of stuff. All of that stuff to plan. We're planners, right? And there's a lot of people that are carefree that don't plan like that. But we also took that exact same stuff, put it into a packet, and left it on our counter in our kitchen for the person that's taking care of our house and her parents in case something happens to us. Does that make sense? So yeah. I think a lot of us don't like to think about negative outcomes in the past. If you don't, just go take Gary Brecka's 10X Health gene mutation test, and you're going to find out when you're going to die within 90 days with 95% accuracy. So I'm that guy that took the test and have changed my life and expanded my life, but I want to know so I can plan to take care of my family, not necessarily myself. And honestly, I want to spend a lot of my money, before I die too, doing some cool stuff.
No, absolutely. I love it. I guess we got to kind of start winding this up, and I hate to do that, but I could talk to you for a long time. You have a stacking masterclass, I do believe, and another training that you were looking to give away. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the 550-250 plan that I mentioned earlier. How you can make one investment, generate $250,000 in net income. There's a free masterclass. It's very short. It's not like a 2-hour masterclass. It's like 30 minutes. And I kind of break down how you can execute that at a very high level. Very valuable. And I think I also gave you my proforma. So there's a proforma that I use to underwrite all of my real estate, single family homes, multifamily, whatever that is. And a lot of people aren't doing that. They're just going to these online calculators and doing really simple stuff. So, and there's training with the proforma as well on how to do that. So I run a minimum of 3 proformas, a good, better, best, run multiple banking scenarios through it as well. The ironic thing is I probably evaluate personally between 30 to 50 properties a week. And I'm running between probably 20 to 30 proformas after I narrow that down on a weekly basis. And that's the last thing that I'll leave your investors with is most of us have this mindset that, hey, I'm not going to be ready to buy for like 3 months or 6 months. I need to save this or get this, whatever. You still need to be practicing, folks. Like you can't wait until you get into this buying zone. You need to be searching. You need to be underwriting. You need to be doing the Gator method. You need to be doing the 550, 250, whatever it is. You need to practice and find the markets and find the deals, especially if it's your first one. Because every deal, and Derek will nod his head, yes, I promise you, every deal Derek and I have done in our lives, whether they're good or bad, we've learned from and we become a better investor. So the more you go through this practice, the better you're going to be prepared, whether it's deal number 1 or deal number 37.
100%. And we'll have it in the show notes, but everybody can go to thegenerationsofwealth.com/family first and get that masterclass and that proforma. Bill, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We went over a bunch of different topics, and not everybody's willing to talk about some of their personal stuff the way you are, but it's really, really appreciated. So again, thanks for giving us your time today. And beyond that, the next show, check out thegenerationsofwealth.com to get all the updated shows. Follow us on social media, the Generations of Wealth Facebook group, and everywhere else that you find us. And we'll see you on the next show. Until then, live your vision, love your life.
Thank you for joining us on another insightful episode of Generations of Wealth. May your newfound knowledge help you in leveling up your own strategies to get through the many obstacles to your money-making processes and bring you much closer to the financially secure life you truly deserve. Continue filling up your accounts and further polish your financial tactics by listening to more episodes of the podcast at thegenerationsofwealth.com. Because in your wealth building journey, there is no other way to go but up, giving you the chance to finally live your vision, love your life. That's all for now. See you on the next one.